I stopped providing financial support to my brother's family after he made it clear that in his view there was no place for losers, evidently including me as such, leading to my exclusion from the Christmas gathering. As the festive season approached that year, I found myself genuinely excited, a sensation that had eluded me in previous years due to the last-minute rush and the overwhelming burden of expectations. This time around, I had meticulously selected gifts for each family member well in advance. My parents, my brother Jacob, his wife Kelly, and their 3 children had their presents wrapped and ready before December had even begun. I'd even gone the extra mile to purchase additional gifts, anticipating the potential arrival of unannounced guests. Despite no specific reasons, a part of me harbored a strong premonition that this year's celebration would mark a joyful milestone. This optimistic bubble burst abruptly when, upon arriving at my parents' doorstep laden with gifts, my mother, with a grave expression, informed me that I wasn't welcome this year. The words felt surreal, as if part of a poorly scripted play. I chuckled awkwardly, thinking it a bizarre joke, but my brother Jacob's voice cut sharply through from behind her, reinforcing the exclusion with stinging clarity. "This is no place for losers. You're really starting to wear on all of us," he stated bluntly. The shock rendered me momentarily speechless as I stood there, each hand gripping a bag of carefully chosen gifts. Disbelief swiftly mingled with an array of emotions: humiliation at being publicly rejected, anger at the unjust accusation, and confusion over the sudden shift in familial dynamics. My father lingered in the background, his eyes darting around nervously, avoiding my gaze. There was an unmistakable tension in the air, a kind of embarrassed acknowledgement of the situation's absurdity, yet no one made a move to rectify it. Even as I tried to process the unfolding scenario, my mother maintained her stance without retreat, and Jacob exuded an air of cold arrogance. Managing to gather my scattered thoughts, I managed to keep a composed exterior. "Fine, if that's how you feel," I responded with a nod, signaling resignation rather than agreement. Turning on my heel, I made my way back to my car, the festive spirit now thoroughly dampened. As I sat behind the wheel, staring blankly at the bags of ungiven gifts, a profound sense of alienation took hold. The words replayed in my mind, echoing the harsh dismissal. No place for losers. The sting was sharp, its source puzzling. Over the years, I had been nothing but supportive of Jacob and his family. My financial assistance covered a spectrum of their needs, from the children's summer camp fees and school supplies to significant contributions like covering his mortgage during his rough patches. This sudden turnaround, the stark uninvitation from Christmas, seemed both cruel and illogically abrupt. After a few moments of contemplation, I decided not to leave just yet. I needed answers, closure of some form before I could move past this. Returning to the doorstep, I left the gifts in the car as if in a symbolic gesture of detaching myself from the expectancy to always provide. My family was still at the door, their conversation now hushed as I approached. Jacob, predictably, had resumed his place on the couch, scrolling through his phone nonchalantly, as if his earlier words hadn't shattered a familial bond. Choosing direct confrontation, I brushed off the conventional nicety of knocking. "What's going on?" I demanded upon entry. "Why am I not welcome at Christmas? What did I do?" My voice, firm and seeking justice, filled the tense living room air. Without even glancing up, Jacob offered a smirk that was both dismissive and infuriating. "You really don't get it, do you? You've been slacking off lately. The kids have barely gotten anything from you this year," he accused, his tone both casual and cutting. Stunned, I stared at him, unable to grasp the reversal of reality. "What are you talking about? I've spent hundreds on presents for your kids. They have more presents in the car than anyone else," I protested, my voice rising in both volume and pitch, betraying my controlled demeanor. "Last year, you did more. This year, it's like you don't care. It's embarrassing for us, honestly, Jacob countered with a shrug, finally facing me with a look that mixed challenge with a disturbing hint of satisfaction at my discomposure. My gaze swept to my parents, who had been silent spectators up to now. Surely they would intervene, offer some word of defense, or at least clarity. Instead, my mother offered an awkward smile and chimed in. "But you just bought a new car. You found money for that, didn't you?" The remark felt like a low blow, not just for its content, but for its implication. The car was a necessity, purchased on credit, a fact well known within the family. "The car is on credit," I replied, my tone steady despite the turmoil within. "And even if it wasn't, how does buying a car suddenly make me responsible for continually funding Jacob's lifestyle? They're not my responsibility." Jacob leaned back as if comfortable in his judgment seat and declared, "You're the one who makes the most money. We're a family. Families help each other. You've always done that." There it was. The unspoken expectation that my financial well-being was a communal resource, indefinitely available to cushion every financial blow that befell Jacob. His wife, Kelly, sat quietly in a corner, her expression one of pained resignation. She seemed almost a bystander in her own drama, her complexion flushed with what seemed like a mixture of embarrassment and helplessness. "Is that your reasoning?" I challenged, my voice laced with disbelief. "Because I've been generous in the past, I'm now obligated to do so forever? And if I don't, I'm a loser?" Jacob shrugged nonchalantly, his response chilling in its casual cruelty. "If the shoe fits..." That was the final straw. My patience, already thin, snapped in the face of such blatant ungratefulness. Shaking my head in disbelief, I turned towards my parents, their faces a mix of confusion and sorrow. "You know what? You're right. I don't belong here," I declared with a clarity born of hurt and resolution. Facing Jacob one last time, I added, "Enjoy your Christmas, and good luck with those presents, because this loser is done financing your lifestyle." With those parting words, I left, not waiting for a response. My steps were heavy as I moved away from the family home, each one echoing the severing of ties. As I drove away, the weight of years of unacknowledged sacrifices bore down on me. The drive home was solemn, reflective, and painfully solitary. Sitting in my driveway at home, the sight of the bag of gifts in the passenger seat brought a fresh wave of nausea. The effort I had put into selecting each gift, considering what my parents would appreciate, what would bring joy to the children, all felt wasted. Unnecessary sacrifices at the altar of familial expectations that were clearly unreciprocal. The clarity that came with distance allowed me to see the situation for what it was. An exploitative dynamic that had developed over years, anchored in my willingness to help and culminating in an expectation that I was nothing more than a financial resource. It became increasingly clear that Jacob had come to see my support not as the gesture of love and solidarity it was meant to be, but as a perpetual entitlement. Resolute in my decision, I confronted the reality. I was not just unwelcome at Christmas. I was an outsider in what was supposed to be my own family. The recognition was painful but necessary, marking a pivotal moment in my understanding of familial love and the boundaries it necessitates. From that night, the decision was firm. I would step back, reevaluate the dynamics of give and take in my family, and reclaim my financial autonomy. The phone remained silent that New Year's Eve, an eerie emblem of the distance that had grown between us. The absence of calls, the lack of messages, it was all profoundly jarring, yet oddly liberating. It wasn't until a lawyer's call early in January that the full extent of the situation began to unravel. The voice on the other end introduced himself as Mark Dawson, an attorney representing a client concerned about the misuse of funds that I had provided to support Jacob's family. The implications were grave, and despite the initial shock, curiosity propelled me to agree to a meeting. The meeting with Mark Dawson was as enlightening as it was distressing. The packet he slid across his desk contained undeniable proof of Jacob's deceit. Bank statements, receipts, and texts painted a clear picture of systematic mismanagement and personal indulgence at the expense of family obligations. The funds I had provided had been funneled not into necessities for the family, but into Jacob's secret gambles and selfish whims. Kelly, as it turned out, was the client Mark represented. Her quiet endurance had reached its limit, the reality of her husband's betrayals pushing her to seek legal counsel. Confronted with the tangible evidence of years of financial deceit, I felt a maelstrom of emotions: anger at Jacob's audacity, guilt for my naivety, and an overwhelming sense of betrayal. As Mark detailed Kelly's intentions to secure a future free from Jacob's destructive habits, I found myself unexpectedly involved in their marital dissolution. The conversation left me with a heavy heart, but also a peculiar sense of freedom. For the first time in years, I was stepping out from under the shadow of Jacob's dependency. The subsequent days were fraught with tension. Jacob's call, full of accusations and denial, did nothing but affirm my decision. His attempts to shift blame were transparent and futile. The conversation ended with my resolve firmer than ever, a resolve to disentangle myself from the web of manipulation that Jacob had woven around our family. Kelly's decision to leave, taking the children and starting anew, was a painful yet brave step, one that I supported unreservedly. The break was necessary, both for her safety and sanity, and for the children's future. In the weeks that followed, as I observed from a distance the disintegration of what had once seemed a stable family unit, I was left with a mixture of sadness for what had been lost and relief at what had been avoided. Jacob's continued blame-shifting and refusal to accept responsibility only solidified my decision. The story of our family's drama, laden with financial deceit, emotional manipulation, and the eventual reclaiming of dignity and autonomy, serves as a potent reminder of the complex interplay of love, responsibility, and personal boundaries. It underscores the painful, yet essential decisions one must sometimes make to preserve one's well-being and integrity. Thank you for watching, and if you're interested in more intricate life stories and personal growth, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell for updates.